So you guys know how I have like this really strange obsession with vegetable cleavers. I mean, it's getting to the point where it's pretty much ridiculous. So I went on to Alibaba Express and I was looking at knives and I saw two vegetable cleavers similar to what I bought from Amazon, but the price was pretty amazing. If you bought one, it was $15. If you bought two, it was like $23, $24, something like that. And I was like, two vegetable cleavers for $24, I'm going to get them, right? One has this probably fake Damascus looking etching on it, and the other one is plain. So I got them relatively quickly. A lot of times I've had situations where I ordered from Alibaba Express and it took like months to get here. These knives happened to have got here like in a week, which is pretty great. But some things that I noticed that definitely show that these are like low-end knives from the minute I took these out of the box. So what these are is these are vegetable cleavers, and they are great. I just love them. They rock. Look at that blade. They rock. And for some reason, I just love this knife. It's they're usually pretty comfortable in my hand, and I can rock really good with them. I feel like on top of the world when I'm using one of these knives. But one of the things I wanted to talk to you about is the dangers of buying like super cheap knives. Now, you can get lucky. I'm not going to lie. I have bought knives that are in the like $20, $30 price range, and I've been happy with them. But to get two knives for a little over $20, I'm setting myself up for failure, right? And right out of the box, these knives were a failure. And I'm going to tell you how and why I believe that. So if you look at the basic blade, the blade itself looks halfway decent. They're using this 7CR17 MOV. I don't know exactly what that means. It's a pretty common steel, like basic level steel that I see a lot of popularly prized knives using. So I'm not faulting him on that. If you look down the blade, you will notice that it is ground to a 50-50 bevel. So it is, a great classic grind on this knife. But aside from the classic shape of these knives, as a vegetable cleaver, my feelings of these knives pretty much stop there. So we can start at the handle. Now, when I pulled these out of the box, I could tell that it was pretty much unfinished wood. And Eric just took it over and did a really basic wash on this. And that wash expanded the wood. It soaked up the water, and the wood pretty much got hairy looking. I don't know if you can see that very well, but literally when I put my fingers on here, I feel like I'm going to get splinters on this knife. So this handle needs to be sanded with a very fine sandpaper, and it basically needs a finish on it. So you need some mineral oil and you need to finish this handle. So for this kind of price range, I've never actually seen this happen on a knife. They do some minimal level of finishing on the handle, and they did absolutely none of that. I can't even use this until I I finish this handle because I will get a splinter. Not only that, this cap on the butt of the knife and the gap between where the blade starts and the handle begins, obviously this is not full tang unless there's some piece, but it looks like this is where it's attached, and then there's a cap on the end. An issue with this is you can literally hear that. Can you hear that?
I hear it.
There's a big gap in between this blade and the handle. And all that is going to do is wear on your fingers. If you do a lot of prep with this knife, over time, you're going to be like actually getting wear on your fingers. And the gap is so bad, you can literally feel it here with my fingers. On any knife, I expect this to be smooth. The other thing to notice is the finishing going up on the blade. I can see it from here, but I've never seen a knife that you can like see those grind marks on there, on the edge there. I mean, the finishing on here, there is barely any finishing. This is slightly sharp. Really, this needs to be put on a grinder and finished out and smooth these edges out, because this right here, I don't know, I really feel like it's going to cut me. You can kind of also see that just in the finishing here. It's just not great. All the way through where the bolster would be, it is ground all the way back to the edge. So you can sharpen it completely back to the edge. There's not like this big gap in here. Some knives, there's like a big gap and it makes sharpening a little more difficult. But if you see on that edge there, there's no gap there. So you can sharpen clear to that edge, which is nice. The belly on this knife really doesn't have any like flat spots. Some knives you can see like there'll be a flat spot in the middle of the knife, or there'll be a flat spot in the back of the knife. I guess you could say on this, the flat spot is near the back, but it's almost completely rocking from one end of the blade to the other. See the shape of that? I don't really see like any big flat spots, which is kind of interesting. Maybe these types of knives just are more prone to have this kind of like completely rocking blade. It does have an okay tip on it. You can, some tips are like totally like lopped off or flattened, so it makes it harder to, slice onions. It has an okay level of a tip on there. So I have a little banana to cut here. It's sharp. It's nice and sharp. The problem is, the blade itself isn't horrible. It's just, I think at this price level, you just don't get the finishing on here. So, you could say, oh, I want a budget-friendly knife. And that's great, but you also have to know, like this knife here, you're going to have to do some finishing on here for it even really to be a really usable knife. I would put this on a grinder and grind this off so it's smoother and not so sharp. I just really feel like this is going to cut me. I would, really, this thing just needs an entirely new handle, to be honest with you. And having that done is going to cost you more than just buying a more expensive knife. Because you can get a decent knife like this in like the $30 price range. I think you're probably better off buying something like that unless you really, want to make it a hobby knife and refinish this handle, but you still have this issue of this ugly gaps in there, which really means this handle needs to be replaced. But at a minimum, it needs to be sanded and finished because it's literally furry. It's literally furry. So I hope this was helpful to give you a few little clues on what to look for in buying knives. How these things are finished is very important. We always talk about the quality of the steel in the blade. We always talk about, the hardness of the blade. But if you have a decent blade, but it's not properly finished and you have a handle like this, it will spoil a good knife. I can't say that this blade is great, but if they did some minimal things to improve the finishing on this knife, I would say it was a good deal. I suspect that these knives are coming out of possibly a factory that's finishing them and they're ending up at the $30 price range, or not finishing them and they're ending up like this. Because these blades look kind of familiar to me. So cooks, I hope this was helpful and I hope you have a fantastic Friday. The weekend is coming up and we're getting ready to cook, right? If you like this video, go ahead and join the Amy Learns to Cook family by hitting that subscribe button and the bell so you'll get notified of my uploads. Also, you can catch me out on social media. All the links will be down in the description. Mainly, you can catch me on most social media platforms as Amy Learns to Cook, and also on Facebook as Amy Learns to Cook. But links are in the description. I hope you have a great Friday. And if you're in the market for knives, really check out those little details because this will go a long way to help you find a knife that's comfortable in your hand, that won't damage your hand at all, and will be a pleasure to cut with.